I've been watching some of the
I lost you.
Some of the European. Can you hear me? I've been watching some of the Europeans, doing what they do in their churches, and when you hear their choirs sing nowadays, they sound just like we did when we were in church. And if you close your eyes, you would not know that's them singing. You would think it was us.
Yeah.
The musicians and everything that they gave us, okay, like they gave us Christianity that in that other form, because again, we gave them Christianity to begin with. We gave them a pure form of it. But then when the sleep took over, they gave us the commercial Christianity. And when they gave us the commercial Christianity, all of the stuff that they gave us, such as speaking in tongues and rolling around on the floor and running through the church and all of that, they're taking all of that back. They may or may not realize it, but they're taking all of that back. And for us, it's being replaced with the law.
Islam. They say imitation is the most sincere form of flattery.
Yes. All of that stuff, they're taking all of it back. I mean, I'm watching them, and I'm like, because they're a good gauge of where we are in the things that we're doing.
Yes.
That's why I watch them sometimes, because for a while there, and even now, a lot of their focus, the European hybrid Christians who were initially doing that commercial Christianity, which is not what we taught them, they're now seeing what's happening and returning back to things that have to do with colonialism. Like they want to go back and visit all the landmarks from the 13 colonies and all the stuff that brought them here. They're starting to return back to what brought them here in the first place, which is what they should be doing. And they've been having these quote-unquote repentance services where they repent for what they did to us when they first came here.
Wow.
They have whole services where they're just on the floor crying, they're on their knees, and all of that. Begging for forgiveness.
Hope it's not too little, too late for them.
Islam. Here's the thing about us. This is the thing about us. Because see, there's still some there's a little bit of noise coming from somewhere.
Empress Kenya.
Islam. There's a little bit of music or something. But Islam, in those services that they have, the repentance services that they have, there's always a little bit of colonization still in there, where they would say, we're sorry for what we did to the blacks. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, we don't accept that because you already know we're not black. You're the black. Y'all are the black. So,
they're black.
Yeah. So that is unacceptable, and they know it's unacceptable. So no, we're not getting all excited because they're repenting for what they did. They got to repent the right way, where we're in our proper status coming out of their mouth.
I found this document about the 1848 ruling on the Supreme Court, Henry Turner, and they granted all the land. The Moors own all the land over 1 million square miles. And I'm trying to finish it. I got to put it in red lowercase, but I'm going to send it to you as soon as I might can send you the original.
It's fine. I've seen that. I think I've seen it before, but that's what they were doing in Oklahoma too. They were using that as their basis for giving land, quote unquote land, But see, the land has to be yours before you can give it to anybody.
Yes, yes. And I get this. I used to be a real estate buff before I woke up. I went to get into real estate so bad. You know, I still get all of these emails from all of those people I have to leave. So,
yes.
But I mean,
yes, we're going to need
just going
real,
on like
real
nothing happened. I guess,
experience.
you know, to their Albion hybrid brothers, you know, they just keep on selling land to them because we know better, you know.
Yeah. Well, they only exist on paper, so they're not really selling anything.
Exactly.
But what they are doing, I'm gonna mute just a couple of the lines because they're coming up on the sound meter, and I want us to be able to hear. But they're not really selling anything. All they're doing really is just showing us how to use an exchange system among one another. That's all. The land is not going anywhere. Nobody can claim it. Nobody, you know, it's ours. It's been ours. We just have to look at what they're doing and then use our own system to do that. Islam.
Because when I first heard Grand Sheikh saying, when you look on your so-called deed or whatever, it says tenants. And, you know, these people come interrupting our meetings and they don't know that their tenants are, oh, we own this. And you don't own nothing.
You know what? They just say that to get a rise out of the Moors. They just say that to get the Moors all up in arms.
I'm doing better. I'm doing better on my war energy. I am.
yeah. That's all they come to do is war, and we're not even about all of that. That's why I just keep on, because that's all they coming for. They already know the stuff they saying ain't got no validity whatsoever, or else they wouldn't be here.
Exactly.
They wouldn't have to come here and try and force their, you know, their thoughts out there on us like that. They wouldn't even come with that. If it was true, they wouldn't have nothing to worry about.
Right.
Right. They wouldn't. Just like we ain't got nothing to worry about. That's why we don't war back with them.
That's the tricky
kind of
part.
Like you know what? You'll get it, Justice. You'll get it.
Oh, yeah.
One thing I know about them, too, is that the Moors who war back and forth with them, they will try and worm their way in, and then they'll start doing things like copying their appellation and coming into meeting as if they're them and stuff like that when you war back with them. That's how I can tell, because that's all they want is the war energy, so they can take and cop what's yours.
Yes.
And make it look like, you know, so.
Islam. Well, you keep forgetting what happens with all the 42 Indian Wars, where all the treaty was broken apart by the government. And the simple fact is the Indian was always peaceful until they keep breaking their words.
Yeah. Well, and that ought to teach us not to contract with them. Because, see, we wasn't supposed to be doing that. We were supposed to be giving them affidavits and commands, just like we're doing now, but we were not supposed to be sitting down signing no paperwork with them and having their signature and our signature on the paperwork, et cetera, et cetera. We was not supposed to be doing that. Because in order for you to contract, there has to be equality at the table.
Yes.
And their status and their bloodline means that there's no equality no equity at the table. So we just speak by affidavit. That's why when we raise them from the dead, they just do as told, as commanded. And now you see them, as we're standing, they're taking back all of the colonial thinking and all of the captivity thinking. They're taking all of that back with them. All the debt and everything, they're assuming it and taking it with them. And all of that is being purified out of us, you know, because that they know what to do. When we stand up, and now that we're doing what we're doing, they automatically get back into the position that they should be in. And then we have to be competent, because that's the key right there. Sometimes people say, you know, they're just lawless and they're just, you know, they're just, Islam just a Theodore. You know, people say they're just lawless. They're just lawless. Well, the people that's saying that they're lawless, a lot of times, and there's not been a single time that I have not seen this happening, where Moors get upset with the hybrids for taking people and doing evictions. They
and it's
always
because
have
we know
a
that
contract.
they know better. Yes.
Yes. Yes.
We know they know better.
And see, they will do better when we do better. We got to stop contracting with them.
Islam.
Even if they're, quote unquote, at gunpoint, we cannot contract with them. We can't. Doesn't matter. Does not matter. And that's where more say, oh, they were going to tow my car, and they were going to do this and this and that. Who cares? Do not contract with them. The ancestors will replace whatever is taken.
Islam.
But they can't take it if we don't contract with them. That's the part that we don't. And those Moors that get on the phone with them and start listening to them cast those spells, that's why don't get on the phone with them. Because it's their job
I'll rise
to
and
cast
stand
spells. That's it. It is their job to cast spells based on the programming that they programmed us with in our sleep. It's kind of like, see, they have the keys to the programming piece. That's why they taught us what they taught us in those animal education camps.
The public food system.
Yes, that's it. That's it. They taught us what they taught us so that when this time came, they could cast a spell and it would cause fear to rise in us, and then we would consent. That's why they taught us all the stuff they taught us, including Christianity, commercial Christianity, and all of that. They corrupted everything we taught them.
You know, Justice, that's why Taj Tariq, they spend so much time going over all the foundational principles, is because they're so important. And that once you get grounded in all those foundational principles, especially things like contract, and really understand what contracts are and how they affect things, that's going to be key going forward for our people, is understanding those foundational principles.
Yes. Yes. That's why he talks about Sedekah and Dum Diverses and Unum Sanctum and Unum Sanctum. Let me see, is it Unum Sanctum? No, the Secret Treaty of Verona specifically speaks to the high contracting party.
Yeah. You got to be aware of where all that stuff comes from.
Yes. Yes. Yep. Yes.
You know, one thing that I say is that you can never really know what something is until you know what its origin is. I mean, think about that. You know, those of us who have children, when your children become of an age where they start dating and stuff, you know, you tell that son, you know, meet her parents, you know, or your daughter, meet the parents, and so you have some idea of who he or she is or is going to be. Because you know, they say the apple doesn't fall, you know, fruit doesn't fall far from the tree or whatever. It's true. It's true. If you want to know what something is, you go back to its origin.
Also, Islam, you also understand if they created their own ethics without secrets, and you learn a lot more by behavioral acts within the dynamics of the families more than our own.
Yes, Islam. Say again, nobility, because that's key. What you said there, that's key.
You learn more about the parents' dynamics within the family working as opposed to outside point of view.
Yes.
So that's why it's very important to understand the courtesy and ethics on both sides.
Yes.
Not how it looks, how it works inside.
Yes, and it never fails. You know how, like, I know they had certain things for us to look for and certain things for the nobles to look for in a mate. They would always tell us, if you want to know how he's going to treat you, look at how he treats his mother. And for us, what did they tell you all about us? What did they tell? Because I don't know. You know, but the family dynamics will tell you a lot about who you're dealing with. Who you're dealing with in terms of how things are going to go between the contracting parties, because that's really what all of that matrimony and all of that, those are contracts too. You know, so, you know, we have to know those that labor among us. Because, and what brought that up is, again, the nobility talking about the origins of things. The origin, the starting point. Look back at where something started, so that you will know. It'll be like predicting the future. You'll be able to look into the future and know ahead of time how things are going to turn out, just by looking at the origins. That's what those documents are for. And again, in our culture, yes, you had to meet the parents so you could see who you were getting involved with. You had to. And it was nerve-wracking and all of that, but you had to do it. And if they didn't ask you to meet the parents, then you knew they weren't serious about you. Because, you're looking at where something started, or someone, where they came from, how they are. You know,
and the other part to that, I believe, as Islam, as if it's interracial, and if they don't understand the culture, it becomes more of a problem if you don't see the parent understand the cultures as indifferent from theirs.
Wow, that's good. Yeah. Yep. Ooh, that's good. Now, see, that's going all the way back into the bloodline and the birthright and the things that we say and do. Because if you're unequally yoked like that, you know, and unequally yoked comes in different. It depends on which dimension you're looking at as to whether someone is unequally yoked. If you're looking in the spirit realm, if someone is, if one person is one being in the relationship is awake and the other is not, then there's some inequity there, and it's going to cause some little bit of back and forth, a little bit for some and a whole lot of back and forth for others, depending on the signs. Going right on back to the beginning, right back to the beginning of where did all of this start? Yep.
Islam. They also say it's always good to draw the conclusion instead of jumping into conclusion.
That's good. Drawing, that's good. That's really good. Because when you draw a conclusion, it takes a lot more time, but it's more precise rather than jumping.
And every line has its reason.
Yes. Yes. The more you draw conclusions as opposed to jumping to them, the quicker you will get at it. You'll be able to make decisions a lot quicker because you've been practicing drawing conclusions based on the facts that are laid out in front of you. Again, going back to the beginning and the contracting and all of that, conclusions are gained, proper conclusion is gained by looking at something from the beginning, and then based on past history, you look forward. I would not have been able to do the things that, in terms of the demonstrations that we've done, without looking back into the past and seeing how awesome our ancestors are and the things that they did. That is knowing where we come from. That's why there was such a push to not let us know where we came from. That was the whole crux of the matter, is do not let them know who they are, because if you let them know who they are, it's over. It's a wrap. And here we are. It's a wrap. Do not let them know who they are, because if you let them know who they are, they're going to figure it out anyway. Because of who they are, they knew we were going to figure it out. Just because of where we come from, they knew that we were going to clear our energy, and that our ancestors were going to bring that information to us. And then affirm it in the law first, and then by manifestation.
Islam.
Yes, Islam mobility.
The sixth sense was always considered in Egyptians' historical facts was actually thought. That's what the sixth sense was, the thought. They took it out of the equation because they don't want people to think for themselves who they are, what they are. So that's why they took that out as the five senses. The last final thought with the sixth senses was actually thought.
Yes. See, we should have known now if we know our math, we know there has to be more than five senses. So 5 is not one of our numbers that bring things together for us. It would have to start at 6, but we also know we got way more than 6 senses too. Way more.
The sixth senses is also to combine them. It makes a perfect symmetrical number as 6 is even, and also combining one of the other senses. That makes it more awareness.
Yeah. Thought. That's why the prophet said what he said. If I can just get you to think, you'll free yourself. In order for us to even go into what we thought was slavery, 95 or more % of our capacity to think had to be turned off. It had to be, or else we could, and we had to actually consent to that 95% being turned off. It happened with the food. It happened in the education camp. It happened in our domiciles where we just said, okay, don't teach them. We're not going to teach the heirs about who they are. We're just going to let them go into this system and let the subject, the foreigners, teach them. So we might as well go ahead and accept full responsibility for our part in all of this. We can't be mad at the hybrid. We can't be mad at them. We contracted with them, and all because they give a little threat, and the threat causes a little bit of uncomfortability. So what? They're doing this and that and threatening to do this and threatening to do that. So what? We still have to stand and not give in for a little comfort. There it is. Justice Malik, as a man thinketh, so is he, and as above, so below. Our ancestors already worked this out. This is a wrap. I was listening to some hybrids this morning in a video by one, it's about Neville Goddard. I don't know if you all have heard of him, but Neville Goddard is a hybrid who he took a lot of our metaphysical thinking and he hypothecated it so that they could use it while we were asleep. And the hybrid in the video was talking about how if you want something to manifest, he first said that everything is already planned out. How he knew that, I don't know. I don't know what he read and saw, but it's the truth. What we're going to do 20 years from now is already written. Where we are now was preordained.
From Sharia
and guess what? Only
Grand Rising.
Yes, Islam. Grand Rising. And the only thing that can change it is us. We can change what happens in the future by what we think about, by what we focus on. And that's why the tests come, to see if we're going to allow the testing and the modern Europeans to distract us from great proper thinking, so that our energies can be directed elsewhere instead of on manifesting our truth and who we really are. In the demonstration that we're doing, because see, about a week ago, we were, just a moment, there's a little bit of noise coming from one of the backgrounds here. I'm going to go ahead and use the background there. Don't take the muting personally, please. It's just to make sure that everyone can hear. But in our demonstrations that we do, all of our demonstrations have a component in them that will appeal to the emotions, okay? And a while back we talked about graphene. About a week ago we talked about graphene. Graphene is a nanoparticle, okay? And I'll say this, there's two forms of graphene. One is natural graphene and one is manufactured graphene. Manufactured graphene is the hypothecation of our natural graphene. And what graphene does is, it's a nanoparticle that when ingested, it allows whoever it is that manufactured it to program the host, whoever it is that ingested that graphene. That's what, you know, vaccines and things like that are programware. Nanoparticles are to program what's called mind control. Okay, and we have natural graphene in us that is used to attract everything to us that our ancestors want us to know. And it will program us based on our will. What is it that we want to manifest? Our natural graphene kicks in and overrides any of the artificial graphene, and will even expel or eject it from our system. And then we automatically start attracting the information that we need in order to free ourselves. So we are actually self-programming. Government, governing our mental. We're self-programming and deprogramming. We are the only species that has the authority to think a thought and then look at that thought that we just thought and say, I'm going to change that so that the outcome is different. We're the only ones who have the ability to step outside of our thoughts and look at that thought and say, I don't want to think that. I'm going to think something different. And then we can literally change the outcome of our thinking so that it manifests something different. We're doing it right now. We, when we went into those education camps, the first thing they wanted to do was feed us and not have mama make us no lunch. They wanted to feed us so they could put all of that stuff in the food. It made it easier and for us to be docile and just accept whatever it is that they were saying without question. But again, we were in control of that too. We can't be mad at them. We really shouldn't be mad at anybody because we can change everything. The only people who get upset about things is people who think they can't change whatever it is they're upset about. People get mad about things like evictions and conveyances being taken and people being put in POW camps. You will not be mad about that when you know that you can change it. For you first. For you first. And that brings us all the way back around to those contracts. All the way back around to where we started this conversation. Secret Treaty of Verona, high contracting party. Article 3 talks about how they contracted to make us docile. Docility is one of those things that it manifests in several different ways. Docility manifests in not wanting to be tested. That is docility. Some don't want to be tested because they don't want to actually have to think their way out and through and over and around. Because that part's been put to sleep in our brain. And now it's waking up. Okay. Yes, Justice Israel, static thinking. Yeah. But then the ancestors have made it so that at this particular time, because I used to wonder how the prophet knew that in the 2000s we would come into our own. He knew that in the 2000s it would happen, and not when he was here. He did exactly what he was supposed to do when he came here. He planted some seeds. He knew the seeds would do what they needed to do so that by the 2000s we would actually start thinking again. He knew that. And the way that he knew that is because he knew the time span that the docility would wear off generationally.
Islam.
He knew that Islam.
You're also saying that he was predestined to our predestination.
Yes.
So therefore, if we encode ourselves because of genetics, we are predestined to understand certain things in certain times. Now, the condition is the test. Which test is test? The test they give us, the test we give ourselves, or the actual test of a condition of itself? The condition of itself as a condition has always been a test naturally. The artificial test is mine or theirs. It's artificial to inhibit. So we have to be predestined to see right through it because it's not naturally.
Yes. Yes. And in order to see through it, you have to tap into the naturalness of your consciousness.
Or state.
Yes. 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 And that's where only the Moors will be able to do that, because we have the ability to naturally see beyond that which is placed in front of us in matrix form. Yes, that's the Jezreel. Intuition. Into it, ion. And every word that ends with I-O-N is a metaphysical word also. It's about ions. Yes. Yes, Islam.
Yes. I-O-N makes it a... I-O-N takes a verb and makes it into a noun of state or condition.
Yes. Yep. Truth. And we would have to be awake to even see that. We would have to be awake to even know that, to look that closely. Yes, in the chat, Justice Armos. Absolutely. Absolutely. Taking responsibility and control of our own thoughts. Only we can do that. Everyone else, those beings who are not us, for example, lions and tigers and bears and all that, they have a capacity to, they have an intuitive capacity, but it's limited, whereas ours is not because of who we are. We actually programmed this whole thing to happen. And then we agreed to come down here and participate in it. The hybrid, the Europeans the modern Europeans are now talking about how the great American experiment is over. Because see, they know, and this is something that we know too, that this whole fiat experiment and us going to sleep into citizen status and all of that, that was all just an experiment that we first thought of, and we said, okay, we're going to do that. So let's make this happen and see what happens. See how all of this plays out. Because see, some of the ones that we created were saying it's just not fair that they know all and they see all and they are all, and that from birth they were complaining about being at a disadvantage. So our ancestors said, okay, we're gonna take all of the perceived advantages away from the heirs, and let's see if they're able to rise up through it, even with 95% of thinking capacity, sleep, docile, status, all of that. Just take it all away from them, and let's see if they're going to rise up without, without interference, so to speak. We actually had to consent to that, and then consent to be a part of the experiment. Yes, Justice Jezreel, handicapped. Because other beings were saying it's just not fair that they come out on top already. From birth, they come out with the status to begin with. So of course they're going to excel and excel and excel and exceed and go forth and create and be and do the best in the universe. And so our ancestors said, okay, well, let's just take that from them and let's put a veil, Justice Theodore, over their eyes so that they can't see And Justice Theodore, you said it, the veil has been lifted. The veil has been lifted. Even when we were born, we actually had a natural veil that came down over our face, and the doctors would have to pull that veil up from over our eyes and from over our face. And even with all of the supposed handicaps of status taken away, ancient knowledge taken away, and all the property, the land, and all of that seemingly taken away, we still, I'm tickled because our ancestors, they knew we would, that we're still going to rise to the top. We're already there. And for some Moors, it's a challenge. They're being tested on that. And the thinking and the, see, things like evictions and conveyances being taken and jail and all of that was put in the way as supposed mental obstacles to keep us so busy and focused on that we miss the peace part that will cause the answers to come. And then the modern European was placed there also. And either they can be an obstruction or they can be the servants that they are. And again, that's not putting them down. We're not going to put anyone down. But we got to see everything for what it really is. We've always been, yes, the phoenix will rise from the ashes. They knew. Our ancestors knew. And now that this quote-unquote great American experiment is over, it's the experiment where everyone thought fiat was the thing and all of that. And I'll tell you this even about the fiat, because we were talking about this before the recording started. Everybody else has their own currency. We were made to believe that fiat was something that we had no alternative to, and that we had to suffer in order to gain anything financially. And that we had to get that from someone else instead of creating our own. And that's why some Moors are having a hard time with the dollarium piece, when it's right there in the law. It's right there in the Constitution that we wrote. The Constitution don't say nothing about nobody coming from somewhere else and putting up a money structure. Doesn't say anything of the sort. And some still have a problem with the dollarium, but I am so grateful that so many more know better. Just by the amount, and we are behind on the emails and the text messages for dollarium. I'll just put that on the record. It's a lot of them, and I'm actually the only one doing it right now. But that's not a complaint by any means. I'm over the moon about that. Because the Moors get it. Yes, we can create our own. Oh, Bitcoin can do it, but we can't? Really? The colonists, the settlers can come and do it, but we can't? Be for real.
Islam. Cynthia Ann Bay here. You touched the nerve on the Bitcoin because they're saying that the Bitcoin comes from some mysterious person that they don't even know who it is, and yet they give that thing validity. It's just really strange dynamics. I yield.
Yes, yes, it's very strange. Satoshi Nakamoto or somebody like that. You know, and of course they were going to say that Bitcoin was the brainchild of some Asiatic named Satoshi Nakamoto or something like, whatever they call him, whoever that is, they call him, that really doesn't really exist. It's actually a hypothecation of the Moors. But they had to take it out of, they had to put a non-modern European origin on Bitcoin because that's the only way they'd be able to sell it. Because they already know all real money starts with the Moors, the Asiatics. And the only way they could sell Bitcoin like they did was to say it started with someone who is not a modern European.
Islam.
Yes, Islam.
Every person that are listening, every person that's not listening, they are their own currency by mental and physical as barters.
Aisha, Elder.
So if you're a barter, you are able to negotiate what is true and what is not true as a fair trade. We did it in the beginning without any metaphysical currency. We did it by trade of using our own word as barters, our deeds.
Yes. We contracted by what we did, not just what we said.
Or what we hold.
Yes. Yes. That's where the phrase "word is bond" came from. Us, the Moors. Boy, Justice Israel, you done hit that nail on the head again. He said in the chat, in school they gave you the lesson and then the test. The ancestors gave us the test. Now we learn what the lessons are. That is so true that I could just, wow. Because a lot of the things like ancient English and delirium and things like that, there was no book that we read that gave us those keys. We just looked at the law and said, this is what we have to do. We have to do that. Red ink and lowercase letters. The ancestors gave us that information from a clear spirit, you know. And then after sometimes I was thinking, ancestors, do you really want me to put that on the public record, that we have to do that? And they said, yes, you have to do it. And I was like, okay, y'all will do the rest. The ancestors will do the rest. And then it wasn't until after we did, stated those things that the ancestors said, okay, now we're going to show everyone where all of that comes from, including you. We're going to show you where it comes from. It came in the spirit, and then it manifested in the flesh. And then when we started looking closely at etymology, where nations are concerned, let's talk about the definition of a nation. Look it up in the book. It's going to say a nation has their own economy, delirium, their own economy. It says a nation has a language in common that is distinct to them. Ancient English. And we already know that all other languages and all other money systems and all other economies started with us, and then we taught everybody else everything else. So the one that we use has to, it is the beginning of them all. Ancient English is the beginning of all other languages. And some don't want to believe that. But that's okay. This ain't about no feelings and beliefs. It's not about any of that. It's about the law. Natural law says everything started with us. That's natural law. We are the primogenitors of all. That's natural law. Natural law says that we didn't get our sovereign-born appellations from a quote-unquote slave master. Why? Because our sovereign-born appellations that our sovereign mothers gave us on the day we crossed the sovereign stargate, there's no way that a group of people who were in, and I'm not putting them down because they came, we created them too, but a group of people that started out in 5,000 years ago they didn't originate anything. Our sovereign-born appellations are millions of years old. Millions of years old. That is why most of us, if you look back far enough, you're going to see that your sovereign-born appellation, some call it a last name, but that's not what it is. It's not a name. If you go back far enough in your family tree or your clan tree, you'll see that they come from things in nature, or things that have to do with actions that we did, or laws that were written, or, something like that. For example, and again, this is back to what we started talking about initially, look back and see where it came from. There's not a group of people that were in some caves, grunting, and who could not read or write and didn't know today, could not have given us our sovereign-born appellations that are recorded down throughout history. They couldn't have given us those because they didn't have them. We did. We had sovereign-born appellations. We got them from our mother. For example, mine is Lawhorn. Lawhorn. Come on now. Lawhorn, that's my mother's quote-unquote maiden name. Lucille Lawhorn. And other more, same thing. You look back and see. The Smiths are the ones who were the artisans and the craftsmen and the makers. That's why they called them blacksmiths, or, Smith was added to the end of a craft. I mean, look back at the origin to see that we've always been who we really are. And then you'll know why this experiment, the great American experiment, was done. Because all the way throughout that time, everyone, and there were some who came from us, who were saying that those American Moors over there have all the advantages. That's why they're so whatever, all of these things. That's why they create the best things, and they make the best this, and they're the best at everything. They were complaining because they said, well, y'all give them everything at birth. Because of who they are, you give them everything. And our ancestors said, okay, we're going to do an experiment. We're going to proceed to take everything from them and see how they do. See how they do. And so, let's just see how they do. Are they going to tap into because that's why the metaphysical part and the spiritual part is that spirit work must be done before we can manifest anything in the natural. Because we're tapping into the ancestral energies that nobody can teach us. Nobody can teach us that. Yep, that's the story of Job. It is Justice Jezreel. Job had everything. Everything. Job had everything. And the devil, the tempter, said, look at him. He has everything. No wonder he loves you so much, because you gave him everything. But I guarantee you, if you take everything from him, he'll curse you. Take everything from him. Evict him. He'll curse you. Take his conveyances. He'll curse you. That's what the tempter said. The one who was jealous of the Moors. Put him through some tests. Throw him in jail. Take some stuff. Take all that stuff away. And that, not only that, because see, his body is superior. He'll build back stronger and better. So take his health too. And he'll curse you. That conversation actually happened. And it was about each and every Moor out there. Take everything from them. And watch them turn out to just, you know, be angry and fighting and, you know, not seeing that they're being tested into their greatness. They'll miss the point. Because they'll be looking at, oh, they treated me badly. They arrested me. They evicted me. They took my conveyance. They did this. They did that. They did it. They'll want us to focus on that instead of focusing on the fact that we can change all of that. Period. And this is the part of the story of Job that they never really put emphasis on it, because we needed to figure it out for ourselves. They put the story of Job. They didn't tell you that what really happened is Job had gotten everything that he got initially from Caesar. By contract. So all the tempter did was say, call in those contracts and see what happens. Call in the contracts and see what happens. I bet you he'll curse you for taking everything from him, not knowing that you have the authority to give it all back tenfold, 100-fold. And what did Job do? They came and they took all that stuff. And Job said, so what? I'm still me. I'm still me, and I'm going to honor my foremothers and forefathers. And this is the part that we need to make sure that we study and focus on. And it's in the bibliopaleo text, but it's also in some of the other writings as well, that our ancestors said, okay, we're going to let you take everything from them, but you cannot have their lives. You can't kill them. You can take the stuff, but you can't have their lives. They're ours. Period. Don't harm them. Don't harm them. You can rough them up a little bit and twist some arms a little bit. And the ones who fight against you, you can cuff them on up and do whatever, but you can't have them. And let's just put them in that state temporarily temporarily, to see if they say, you know what, I'm just going to go back and be a citizen. You know, will they say that? And Job said, no. And then what happened? Job started demonstrating his sovereign status. See, they don't tell you that part, but you start looking in the Hebrew writings and the Hebrew translations of the book. That's the part they took out. That all the contracts were called in, and they came and took all that stuff, and Job had to render unto Caesar that which was Caesar's. And then Job started proclaiming his sovereign status and gaining things allodially and sovereignly, according to the law. And that's how everything got manifested so many times over for him. Where his health was concerned, all he did was some fasting and some drinking some water and stop eating junk. And it took time. It took time. It didn't happen overnight. It took time for him to transition from having all that stuff to saying, okay, let's just start over. Hold up. Let's just start over. But this time, I'm not going to contract with them. I'm not going to contract with them. I'm going to speak by affidavit. Damn the threat. Damn the threat. Speak by affidavit and keep it moving. And that's how everything was returned. That took time. It took time. It took time for him to change his eating habits and drink lots of water throughout the day and all of that. But he did it. Render unto Caesar that which is Caesar's. If the things that were gained by way of using a nom de guerre, a war name, those are war tools. So you have to take the corporate covering off of that stuff. The corporate covering is a war covering. That means that someone's at war because they're using a nom de guerre, a war name. That's why they trademarked and patented the black ink and capital letters, because they said we're just going to use that for war. That's going to be the war piece. And a hint about that was given in that rainbow flag. See, the rainbow flag, again, it's been hypotheticated as, you know, the gay pride flag, blah, blah, blah. That's a hypothecation. The flag contains the colors that different nations and statuses write in, depending on what we want to say. And there's no black in it. There's no black in it. That flag came from us. As did everything else. So now when we talk about, and I'll go back to the part about the graphene, whenever we're demonstrating or whenever we're being tested, there is always going to be an energetic component to every test. And if we get control of that energetic component from the very beginning, we'll pass the test with flying colors. We'll come out like pure gold every test if we can get a hold of the emotion part of it, the energetic part of it. Yes, Justice Frank. Ooh, He said practice makes perfect. Oh, yes, it does. Just going out, whenever you go out, doing one demonstration a day, even if it's someone called you ma'am or sir, and you say, well, no, I'm not a ma'am or a sir. That's British, I'm American. Or that's British, I'm ancient Al-Moroccan indigenous. Or whatever, I'm Moorish American. That, and being able to do that peacefully as often as possible, and no matter how much time it takes. So sometimes we're rushing through our transactions and our exchanges and whatever we're doing out there. And someone will say that and we'll let it slide because everyone's in a hurry or there's a line behind us or whatever. You know, that's a good place to practice. Slowing everything down and saying, hold up, stop and correct, stop and correct, stop and correct. Stop and correct them. Stop and correct them. That is how we learn to control our energies under whenever we're tested. Stop and correct. And it also assists us with the fear factor, because there's a component in the programming that appeals to the fear factor. And if they can't get you scared, they'll get you angry. They'll try to get you angry. Those are the two that, if they can't scare you, they'll try and make you mad. If they can't make you mad, they'll try and get your ego in the way, so that you say something or do something that is not as noble as it could be. Again, we talk about directed energy weapons, etc. Directed energy weapons, all beings are directed energy beings. So whenever you're dealing with the modern Europeans, they're energetic too. And then, and when you're dealing with them, and that's why we do everything by court action, because the court action corrals all of the energies. It will take all those energies and bring them under the control of the air. Why? Because when we're doing a court action, we know that we are in control of everything. The more court actions we do, the more we will know that we're in control of everything. So as we go about demonstrating our sovereign status and working in unity together, because we're all demonstrating together, we can prove to ourselves that we are sharper, that we're stronger, more mature, and diplomatically intelligent, and energetically intelligent, because they talk about emotional intelligence and all of that. All of that falls under energetic intelligence, knowing the energy, so that we can stay in a constant peaceful state while we're demonstrating our sovereign status. Because where we're going now, and we're going to talk about this tomorrow night at 7, we put it on social media, and I'll go ahead and announce it here as well. We are going to be placing on the public record the Federal Indigenous Readiness Erudition Mandate, whereby we can take full control, and we will do it. We don't really have a choice because of the way things are right now, where we take control of all of the resources, okay, on our land. And where everything is already set in place. If you just look, and we'll talk about it tomorrow, we'll introduce how it's going to work and all of that tomorrow. But as we roll out the firearm process, it's not a process or it's a process, but it's really a national mandate that we have to do. We were sent here to do that. But as we get into that, energies are going to be around, you know, everything that we do, because we're going to be in close proximity to the subject in this mandate. Everything that we've done up to now was to introduce this mandate that we'll introduce tomorrow. Everything that we've done up to now. When I think about what the ancestors have done and are doing and the way they rolled it out, all of this was planned. Everything that has happened to each and every one of us was planned. It was all planned out. And all we had to do, and all we have to continue to do, is mind our energies, govern our mentals, so that anger and frustration and wanting to blame somebody else when things happen to us, and things don't really happen to us, we call them forth. And how we handle the testing. Because some fight the testing the whole time, and it just drags it out when you fight like that. Yes.
Islam.
That's good. Yes. Go ahead, my Billy.
This is just a thought that I need to express when people don't understand the form of test where it divides the good and bad, or it has to divide the half of argument, the half of the answer. I always try to tell people, if you don't understood the difference between amen and omen are one and the same. Omen is not a bad word to most people if they understood the roots of it. It meant for the future. You take things out of order. The amen is how you express it now. The way they conform these words, or the way they conform these questions, saying if I took things or I forced things or I pushed things, to keep in mind that the person and his ability to convert positive to negative and negative to positive. That is the most important thing to one understanding, or overstanding, to the point that you have to have the understanding or overstanding of the conversion. If you don't have the understanding of conversion between good and bad, then you are not augmenting your power.
Yes. Oh, that's good. You're talking about energetic transmutation. Transmuting. Right. When the energy comes, and my brother Shalay Moore is really good at expressing that, when he said that when someone sends you negative energy, it's just energy. Do something good with it. He did an actual, like a video about that. It's brilliant. Yes, that's good, Nobility. I apologize for interrupting. That's good. Go ahead, Nobility.
That's why when we are forced to see things, we are forced to see it. We're not forced to see it on both ends. That's why when something bad happens, we blame just the outburst, the deflect, normally deflect, when actually you're supposed to do both, deflect and reflect. So that way your gauge of energy is even. You cannot keep everything inside so much it boils over. And you can't throw everything out when you're empty.
Yes. Balance. The Libra energy. Duality.
Well, I think that's not really duality. It's called a switch, which is called duplex. You are your own switch. Okay. So duality means you are holding two, But the duplex means you're actually the switcher.
That's good. Ooh, that's good. That's good. Because you don't really want to hold some of that stuff. You don't want to hold it. You want to change it.
Right. In conversion, as opposed to maybe toxic to you, or convert it where the fact is it's better, or you filter it. You have an options where you could understand what kind of energy to convert it, to propel it, to throw it back. So that's why when something bad happens, so we have that instinct to throw something bad at it back. And we're never able to convert that power where it's negative energy. You're not supposed to use it. You're supposed to convert it to your own and throw it back. That's what they've been doing to us consistently on half the answer. So when they said the devil did this, no, it was never the devil. It was never God. It's just that you separate those two to the point one enlightens things. The other one is the light.
That's good. That's good. That's good food. That's good thought food.
See, that is directed energy tools and directed energy science. When energy comes to us, I do it all the time because there's a lot of energy that comes our way from different places. And we have learned to use all of it. There's no energy that comes our way that we cannot use. No energy that comes our way that we can't use. When them hybrids come and them, and say what they say and do what they do, we can take that and use it and see it for what it really is. What is it really? That's nothing but them signaling their brethren that the Moors are awake. And they're trying to get attention so that they can point and say them right there. And this is not the only place they come and do that. I'm pretty sure they, I'm pretty sure that they probably go to other calls and others, and do the same pointing that they're the one, they're awake. Those right there, look at them, watch them. They're awake.
In Islam, it's funny as if they keep pointing fingers. And here's the real problem with the finger pointing. They only use one finger. We use our other four.
Yeah, Islam. Let me just show you something that one of the Moors pointed out to me 2 days ago. I believe it was 2 days ago that I spoke to one of the Moors. Because when we talk about those hybrids, and the Europeans, and directing the energy a certain way, when they come on to the calls and all of that, Moors say a lot of stuff, but look at what they're saying about the Moors. I'll put it on the screen. Can you see what's on the screen? They're saying, and I'll point right here. Hang on just a second, let me pull that now. They're saying the U.S. lost to the Moors. Now this is hybrid saying this out on YouTube and everywhere. That is what they're doing, is pointing. When they come and they're talking about all of us, they're like, the Moors are awake. They know it's over. They're saying it's over. For the United States Corporation Company, the black one. The black one. They're saying it's over. We've been saying it. So I guess it's you know, but by the time they're saying it's over, and there's, you know, I'm glad that we can all see that what we're doing is absolutely what we should be doing. And we must do it together. We have to do it together. We can't do it separate from each other. That's the way because this estate is too vast. It's too vast. We have to do it. And part of all of that is being able to direct our energy peacefully, and to stay peaceful, even if it, you know, it may look like someone is quote unquote punking you, because, you know, that's an ego thing. Sometimes I hear more say if those hybrids, if it was me, I would have cursed them out and lit into them. That's ego that wants to do that. We don't have to prove anything, not to them. But it's the energy that they come for. And just like the noble was saying, it's the energy that they want from us. And if we give it to them, we feel drained. Because they already know all energy starts with the Lord. All energy that's pure and that's going to propel things forward. Yes, Justice Yezreel, be like water. Oh, that was something that the ancestors impressed upon me early on, and it's also something that Grand Chief said early on, is that there's really no such thing as good and evil, not really. There's no such thing as good and evil, not really. Either you can take whatever it is that comes and use it to your advantage, because there's nothing out there that comes our way that we cannot use as an advantage to get to where we're going. Everything that comes our way, it can be used. But if we look at it through the eyes of ego or anger or blame, wanting to blame modern Europeans when they're really just a tool that we said we'll use this and they agree, they consented to be that assistant, that custodial assistant, to get us to where we need to be in terms of being peaceful, love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. It is degrees of energy, yes. So whenever I see Moors going back and forth, either with each other or with the hybrid, the modern European, I'm trying to get into the habit of calling them modern Europeans as opposed to hybrids, because I just think it's more diplomatic. But when I see Moors going back and forth with them, all I'm thinking is, you're giving them so much life and energy. They just love it. They just love it.
Islam.
That's why All Rise and Stand is so powerful, because we're giving them life again, but putting it in a lawful manner. See, they get life from our energy, especially arguing and warring and going back and forth with them. They love that, because no law is being spoken. But when you give them life the right way, they must do what is commanded of them. Go ahead, nobility.
It's actually called unfair distribution of energies, where their actions or reaction to anything is from the it, the lower form of ego. That's where they just throw something out there, and we are supposed to react on our ego, not realizing the alter ego is supposed to oversee that. So this is where it's always an unfair advantage, because you are just acknowledge the it, not the ego. You cannot fight something that gives you so small and being upset and unfair to the whole degree that you give them that much energy, because they're using minimum amount of energy to get the maximum amount of energy of the adversary.
Yes. It only takes a little bit of our energy in that direction. For them, they can go a whole...
Well,
they can get a lot of mileage.
Well, actually, they give us guilt. That's how. This is why they placed us where they placed us. As supposedly we could overcome it, because they only had to wrongly say, negative stuff, which is a minimum amount, knowing for a fact that we have to burden of proof, the burden of trying to establish the wrong that they're actually saying. So that's too much energy. So they want something constantly by doing that, and they always win by doing that. Knowing for a fact that false allegations is simple and easy. A 3-year-old kid could do it. But as a person that understands how a kid doesn't use it properly, then you understand the guilt, where the fact is if you feed it so many times, you have to explain. But now the burden of proof is over-explaining. So this is why our energy is always drained.
And guess what? We're in complete control of that. We're in complete control of that. They say karma is not what happens to you, it's how you respond to what happens to you. We're in complete control of everything. Period. And it's only when ego comes into play that control is yielded something or someone outside of us. And even that has to be done by our own consent to allow ego energy to operate. Especially when we're being tested. When we're being tested, if we let ego get in the way of us being tested, then people are going to point and say, look, see what happens? Knowing that you're being tested. The modern European is, they're really good at that. Is when someone is being tested, they put the spotlight on it. Look, what happened to the Moors? Because they want to appeal to the ego of all the other Moors who would say, ooh, I don't want to go through that. Or, ooh, look what happened to them. Not knowing that the Moors are going to come out shining after the test is over. Because we're going to stand, period. So what do? Put our shoulder to the wheel. Forget all the noise and do what the law says, do and be the law. And even ego is not a bad thing when in its proper place. But we know that. Again, there's no good and evil in all of this. There is everything in its proper place. Law governs all events. Law governs all events. That means there's no event that's outside of the control of the law. Who's the law? The Moors. Who's the law? The Moors. Law governs all. That's a maxim. That's a maxim. Law governs all events. Ooh, now, that's the second time that phrase has come up in this meeting. So let's talk about it, because I every time I hear the word alter, that word is so proper and fitting for what happened. Yes, Justice Theodore, it means change. So, for example, we put some documents out there, and someone said, oh, I'm going to change this document. And we want more to edit and change according to their study. But the energy that went into one or two of the changes, Moore's changing documents, they changed it from an ego perspective where it's like, no, I'm going to do this and be this, and I'm going to stand alone, and, and when I saw the documents, I knew when I saw the documents that ego energy was where the changes derived from. I knew it. Because there were mistakes on the document. And I'm not saying we don't make mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes. But sometimes, based on what you're looking at on the document, you can tell the energy that the document was crafted with. If someone crafted something in anger, you can tell. So the word alter is actually a ritual word where you take the document and the thoughts that come with the crafting of the spell, and you place it on an altar. You place it on an altar. They talk about altars in church. All churches have altars. And whenever you want to make a change, they say, come to the altar and let us change the energy and change what you're thinking and change your condition by casting a spell on you. And so they say, come to the altar. Well, when you come to the altar, every time we manifest a thought, it has gone on to the altars of our mind. Our mind is one giant altar. And the energy that we manifest anything has already gone through our altar or not. And the way we manifest things, or the way we overstand and demonstrate, and the way we speak. Because sometimes, we can speak with Moors, and we can hear all types of colonialism in what they're saying. And then when we point it out, we say, okay, but you got to know they're not talking to you. That one, we say that a lot in many conversations that we have with Moors. Sometimes the Moors will say things like, yeah, that fake judge sent me a summons to appear. You have to put that sentence on the altar of your mind and change it and make it what it should be. A fake judge can't send a real living being anything. They can't. You're never going to get anything in red and all lowercase letters from them. You're never going to get anything like that from them. Not from courses. They got to operate within their trademark. They're bound by that. Black ink, capital letters, even if it's just one capital letter.
Islam.
That's their trademark. Islam.
To correct the understanding also, is meant to be augment, which is AUGMENT.
Augment.
Which actually
yes.
Increase. Alterate means the other form. So if I say things that shouldn't sound, I meant augment.
Yes.
It's meant to increasing because if you put the good and the bad, put it as one, you are increasing your knowledge. You are increasing your understanding, overstanding. So that's why when you are given half the answer, or you're given the wrong answer, or you're given no answer at all, it's still an answer. The actual answer from it is actually solution, which actually applies it. That's why when we do a correction, we see all the answers in front of us, and that's when we converse, we are taking every single one of awareness and make a correction as an alter ego as together. Perceptions, not my perception, not your perception, everyone's perception.
Wow. Augment, that is a word of the mind. Any word ending in M-E-N-T has everything to do with the mind first, and then it manifests based on how we alter whatever it is that's coming our way. Augmentation is an alteration as well. It just depends on to what degree we alter what has come our way. Making it bigger is an alteration. It's an augmentation as well. So just like when there's been some things that let's say some things that we wrote in the past before we received another alter or a degree on our mind, we were putting a lot of information out there because the ancestors were giving us so much information, but we hadn't gotten to the red ink and red ink and all lowercase letters yet. We hadn't gotten there yet. But now the ancestors have given us the ability to point to the documents that we wrote previously and say, go ahead and use them. Just put them in red and all lowercase letters. In other words, alter them according to your status. Because we have to do that anyway. When we're looking at information that we get from the hybrids, our ancestors knew that we would have to go through all this that we've gone through so that we can place the information on the proper altar of our mind and make that information what it should be. It's a filtering, cleansing, clearing process, and that goes for energy too. Augment the energy or alter it. Either way, it's still energy that we can use. It's still energy that we can use. The demonstration that I did in February, in the POW camp demonstration, the energy from that experience and that demonstration has been altered, but it was altered before I even went in, because I knew going in that there was nothing they could do. Didn't matter how long it took to prove it. The 11 days was simply a test of my stamina. After 11 days, would you still be stating who you really are and not eating and not signing anything because it's got black ink and capital letters on it? So then even in their documents, they had to alter their documents and put everything in blue and capitis diminution minima and say, okay, there you go. Yes, stamina and will. That's what's being tested with every test, Moors. Moors who go to the POW camp, your stamina and your will to be yourselves and not give in and not compromise and not acquiesce is being tested. That's actually what's being tested more so than anything else, simply because if we stay on jurisdiction, we don't have to go all off into subject matter and all of that. We don't have to know a whole lot to stay on jurisdiction. All we have to do is a court action. A court action, in order for the law to be executed, it must first be established. A court action does that. It establishes the law. It establishes proper identification of the parties. And when proper identification of the parties is gained and established by, and it must be established by the superior. Come on. The hybrid, the modern Europeans don't have the authority to establish identities. That's why they never told us who we were. They don't have the authority to say you're the nobility until we say it. To me, that was mind-blowing enough right there. You know, because some get mad and say, oh, they didn't tell us who we were. They don't have jurisdiction to tell us who we are or are not. And the fact that they didn't tell us ought to let us know that they don't have jurisdiction over us. Justice Yezerel, there it is. They don't have the right word. That's why you don't hear in capitis diminutio nolo coming from them. It had to come from us. They could talk about in capitis diminutio minima and in capitis diminutio media and in capitis diminutio maxima. They can talk about that. Can't talk about in capitis diminutio nolo because that's not, you don't have the right word. You don't have the jurisdiction to even discuss it because it's not you. And the only way you can discuss that is after we say it. Right word, jurisdiction. Period. So we can't even be mad at them for that. They didn't have the authority. They didn't have the authority. And when we stop contracting with them and stay uncontracted, out of contract, stay without the United States Corporation Company, when we stay outside of that, of the United States Corporation Company, we're going to get back everything that we ever could imagine and more. But that test is a test that comes. That test comes for all of us. If they threaten to turn your lights off, are you still going to be yourself? Are you still going to be yourself? And say, no, I'm not contracting with you because you don't own no light. So, Caesar, we will render unto you your contract. So that's all it is. That's all it is. And then the ancestors are going to do the rest. And some people say, well, but you can't leave the children in the dark. Or they had guns. We've been there. We've been there. We've been there. We've been there. And, oh, they weren't going to feed us. They don't own no food. So it's not their decision. Isn't it funny how while we're out here, there's always this supposed threat of food starvation or whatever it is they're using, whatever term they use. There's a term they're using, food something, food, I forget what the term is, where, oh, something like food instability or something like that. where they're saying, ooh, there may not be enough food for everybody, because they want to plant lack in the mind. But then when you get in them POW camps, if you don't eat, they force feed you. What is that all about? Or they try to do it because they couldn't do it with us. But they were intent, and the fact that they were so focused on making sure that we ate, okay, and we were focused on making sure we didn't eat, is because you can't have it both ways. Some courses, everybody that's out here that can actually choose what they want to eat, they're trying to tell you that there's not enough. But then you get into those POW camps, and all of a sudden, it's everybody needs to eat. You need to eat. You need to eat. What's going on? Seems like if there really was a such thing as lack of food, that you would be happy somebody came in there and didn't want to eat. But that's not the reason for the food. The food is a control mechanism. It's a docility tool. Yes, that's it in the chat. And here's the thing. When I went in there, I wanted them to know that it's not their decision whether I eat or not. It's my decision. It's not their decision. Mine. Bars, doors, locks, keys, and all. You still don't have control over the more. And that was the point. We make all of our own decisions. And no one else has the authority to do it. Period. They don't have the authority. Threats and all. That whole threat, duress, and coercion piece, we can't give in to that. We can't. We are to be peaceful. We're to be peaceful at all times. Specifically when we have a perceived threat that only comes in the form of words. Because they can have 30 guns on them. As long as they're talking, they're lying. Until you put them in subject status. And then they don't talk. You don't even listen to them. You speak. We're in control of everything that has to do with us. And a lot of that transmutation of energy and all of that, and that's another reason why our birth charts and our signs are so important. I want to make sure we put that in there. That how you respond to energy has everything to do with your signs and then your willingness to go into the other signs of the zodiac and pull tools from them. I have to pull, I'm a Leo, so I have to pull from Libra to get balance because Leos are mission driven. Whatever the mission calls for, we don't care. If today we have to dig in the dirt and tomorrow we got to wear a white dress and dress up and whatever the occasion calls for, we just say, okay, this needs to be done and this needs to be done, let's do it. And we have a tendency to do that without balancing out that, okay, let's put some balance on it, which is what the ancestors are working with me now on. It's balance. Balance. And balance is so beautiful, but I have to go into Libra energy to do that. And then Gemini they're very emotionally sensitive. So they're led by emotion until they decide not to be. So even the signs don't have control over who we are, because we can just decide not to use that tool. And none of the tools are bad. We just decide, okay, I'm a Leo and this is the tool that I have, but I'm not going to use that tool as much as I did before. I'm going to use some of the Libra or the other signs, earth signs and things like that, the water signs. I'm going to reach into those and pull some tools out. And that is helpful with transmutation of energy and altering energy and augmenting energy properly, so that when we're demonstrating, we can, yes, Justice Theodore, spirit animal is lion, Islam. On those period and making you a great tool. You watch out for your own and you don't hesitate to in the fight with secular one. That fight thing though, Justice Theodore, I had that whole Leos are fighters and all of that. We fight in the spirit realm. And the fight when we wake up looks so different from the fight when we're asleep. It looks so different. It's not even a fight anymore. It can't even be described as a fight. It's more of a, yeah, it's that. It's winning without fighting. It's winning without fighting. The fight is in the letting go and the relaxing and the peacefulness, the inner peace. Our fight is only within us, and that goes for all of us. The fight is only within us.
Islam.
Islam. Go ahead, Nobility.
Anytime people use fight or war, replace it with struggle. It's a better fit as anything, internally and externally. Also, the better use of any fight and any outcome of a fight, because the outcome determines the fight. But it's not really a fight unless you learn from the fight, which goes above that. I will always say it's always after a fight or after contemplating the outcome, you should get a fusion after that. A fusion is a combining where why you got into a fight, what's the outcome of the fight, what's the process of a fight. It's a fusion of understanding what was the fight for. Because certain people don't realize if you take things out of context, you will see it out of context for that reason. If you put it in context, you may not see it for that reason. But if you fuse it, you will see the both outcomes presented on both sides.
Islam. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Beautiful awarenesses. From our perspective, and I've said this before, and it got some response and some reaction that just, that was expected. But I stand by what I said, and I'll say it again today. We have no enemies outside of us. We have no enemies outside of us. The hybrid, the modern European is not an enemy. In fact, they're actually here to assist, honestly, truth be told. They're here to assist. We have no enemies whatsoever, except within. Without a foe, a soldier never knows his strength. The Holy Quran, the Circle 7. We have no, but that is an awareness that came to me from early on, once I say, or once I started demonstrating, and I saw how the hybrids got into their proper place whenever we were competent, you know, from an early on. And that came from, I would have never known that had I not gone into the POW camp in 2017. I would not have known that we don't have any enemies. We really don't. As long as you think you have enemies, you'll fight, and you'll use your energy to fight. But when you realize you don't have any enemies except for within, and that is not even an enemy type of thing. I'm at the point now where, again, we were, you know, yes, Justice Frank, it's a higher self and lower self on everything. As above, so below on everything. There's no good and evil. There's just, those are just parts of the whole. Parts of the whole. That's it. Parts of the whole. So, as long as we keep peace, keep clearing our energies where peace can be generated from us, from within us, then we won't feel like we have to fight all the time. It's really not a fight. It's a testing and then being shown. Okay, then you're tested again, and then you're shown, and then you're tested again, and then you're shown. And each level, you go up higher and higher and higher. But the testing, I'll tell you this, the hardest part of the testing was the initial test. Getting past the ego that says, you know, that, oh, we're the heirs and we shouldn't be going through this. That is like, when I look back on the times that I thought that, I think that was a really stupid thought. When I think about to whom much is given, much is required, when I think about that, I think, well, how do we know if much is given? By what's being required. If no one's requiring anything of you, then you probably aren't doing anything. And here's the thing, if you're not requiring it of yourself, then take another look. Take another look. If you're being tested and, you know, so whenever we say things a certain way, we do get booted out of the meeting. And sometimes it's the ancestors saying, that's exactly right there, what you just said. Whenever we hit that nail on the head, sometimes they'll boot us out and say, pay attention to why we booted you out. What did you just say? Remember it. So, you know, we are the ones who call forth our own test. We do that. We call forth our own test because only God can call forth their own test. When I decided back in 2017 to put moorishe tags on my conveyance, I was calling forth my test then. I was letting the energies out there know that, okay, I'm ready to be myself. And so the testing started, and the ancestors had the hybrids to pull me over twice to see, does she know that we don't have jurisdiction over her? Does she know? Okay, let's just see how much she knows and see if she's angry. Let's see if she's angry. So when the policy enforcer, you know, and me back in 2017, I was new. I had just woken up. I wasn't even awake 5 months before my first POW camp experience. And the policy enforcer, he twisted my arm back and bent my finger to see if I was going to fight or get upset, you know, and stuff like that. And Justice Frank, don't start. Justice Frank. He put in the chat, where's the hybrid at? Leave them people. Look, let them stay where they are. Please do not invite them to the meeting. Okay. And yes, Justice Frank, solar return is tomorrow. We want to say it very early on the public record. Happy solar return, Justice Frank. And yes, I see what you're saying in the chat, that both our solar returns add up to 8 this time. Yes. We do love you, Justice Frank. You know you're in our hearts. You know that. You know that. So, but yes. So anyway, with that being said, we will bring the call to a pause here until tomorrow at 7. Thank you to everyone who sent me happy solar returns and happy birthday and all of the happy born day and well wishes and all of that. We got them all. We love you so much. Thank you. And our ancestors did what they always do. The born day yesterday was just abundant. It's just abundant. I mean, I have no words for the unexpected abundance. And I don't know why I don't expect it, but I just didn't, and there it was again. So with that being said, please, tomorrow at 7, we are going to be rolling out the mandate. And it is a mandate to go ahead and move forth with with control of the vast estate and the resources that we need. And it's going to require all hands on deck. We need all more stepping forth, please. So, and we'll move carefully and competently together as a nation so that this moving forth in the control of the resources is what it should be. So, with that being said, peace and grand rising to the sovereign, original, indigenous, natural, divine heirs. Islam.
Peace and grand rising.
Peace and grand rising.
Islam. Peace and grand rising.
Islam, peace and grand rising.
Islam.
Islam, peace and grand rising.
Islam.
Grand
Long
rising
live
to all
the empire.
Happy solar return.
Grand rising.
Grand rising. Islam.
Accept the more.
Yes, long live the empire. Islam.